We're all cranking out hit after hit after hit, claiming Chicago's place in music history.
All you need is faith to hear the dealers humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord.
Tonight, in honor of Black History Month, we shine a spotlight on a part of Chicago history that's been taken for granted, the music. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Absolute Artistry. I'm Jeanne Sparrow. Music has always been woven into the fabric of this city. Blues, jazz, gospel all have roots here and grew here, as did R&B music, which comes from all those art forms. Tonight we'll take a look at what it was like and what it felt like to be a part of the scene when the art and the business of making music came together to create the Chicago sound. We'll also see what the future holds for the Rhythm and the Roots, Chicago's R&B legacy.
On Michigan Avenue, Record Road between 12th Street, which is Roosevelt Road, and say 26th Street. You name the record label, they were here. You name, I'll tell you, from Mom's Maple. Mom's Maple and Pigmeat Markham was saved by a Chicago company, Chess Records. Their careers were over. And Lennon and Phil Chess. You know, they had first-hand knowledge of how to read a community. Their family came from Europe. But he came to America from over there with a hellified work ethic and became wealthy. His son started a tavern on 43rd and Cottage Grove. I forget, I don't know if it was Chess, I don't know what they named it. But anyway, they catered to the black community. They had the blues in there, you know, the jukebox with the blues records, and they had the drinks. It was a bar. Then they started hearing about certain record companies selling these little 45s and stuff, and some of these blues acts that come in there, heck, we can record them. So they rented a store on the corner, a storefront. That was the beginning of Chess Records, 43rd County, right on the corner, next to the tavern. And they would go in there with all these local blues acts and record. They used to stomp on the floor to get the bass beat. It was just a store, but some of them old records, you hear cars going by, you know, because they didn't have the technology of today. But that became the most important record label in the country at one time, before this little upstart company like Detroit from Motown. But those were the individuals that started controlling Chicago blues market. And then VJ Records was started by a black lady out of Gary, and with $500. Became one of the most powerful labels at a time. That was the first label the Beatles were signed to in America, and that was a black-owned company. Hewitt Abner, who used to run Motown, helped develop that company. So there's a lot of history in this city that has affected the whole world.
Between Roosevelt Road and 22nd Street, Cermak Road, there were either record manufacturers on each side of the block, on each side of the street, or all the way down that particular, what they call Record Road. And they were either manufacturers or they were distributors. And so you had young kids walking down the street with just lead sheets in their back pocket, hit records, you know, walking in and out of all these places. And by the time they go from 12th Street to 22nd, somebody will have picked them up, took them into the studio. So it was a great time for the music industry. And as a result, the kids in the neighborhood started just bringing in their product to me in droves. And so I picked one and decided to go in the studio with Bill Shepherd, Bunky Shepherd. He just passed away a year or so ago. And we went in the studio and we cut a vocal group called the Dukays, D-U-K-A-Y-S, and we did 4 sides on them. And they all came out so well that I decided to split these 2 up, you know, and call 2 of the songs the Dukays. And one of my favorite actors' name was Jeff Chandler. And so this kid's name was Eugene Dixon. So I took the Gene and I added Chandler, and I called these sides Gene Chandler. So we did the Duke of Earl. So we put them out 2 different records. One was called Kissing in the Kitchen or something, a Night Owl they were. And the other one was called The Duke of Earl by Gene Chandler, and they both went up the chart at the same time. The only thing about it, The Duke of Earl just went straight up. We put it out somewhere like the November the 20-something, and by Christmas it was a #1 record in the country. The guys told me, oh man, I don't want to do that. You know, we don't even have any. All they had was the chant, do, 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 girl. That's all they had. That's it. We ain't got no more there. I said, go home and write them tonight, because if we don't have that, we're not going in the studio. Oh, that ain't fair, Carl. That's not. We can say that for the next session. Ain't gonna be no next session. Go home and write it. So they called up Bernice Williams, who was a songwriter, and they started working it out. They called me. They said, Carl, listen, if a guy's a king and he owns property, what is that? I said, a kingdom. Said, oh, girl, they go back. 10 minutes later, they call me, well, hey, what happened if it's a duke? It's dukedom. I had the same problem with old girl. Oh, girl, I'd be in trouble if you left me now. I mean, I heard the first line says a smash.
I hated the record. I hated that record. I said, well, it's too popish. You know, that ain't gonna do that. It's too popish.
We were doing the Flip Wilson show, and we were basically doing it for Have You Seen Her? And we were at the hotel, and they called me and said, we need a second tune. You know, we need to do 2 songs. So I don't have anything ready.
We don't even have the strings on there yet. I don't care. I feel that record, Mars. There's something about that record. I feel it. Take it without the strings. The only thing we had on there was the harmonica and the rhythm. And we said, okay, you the one to call the shots.
We sat right there in that hotel room and learned steps for this old girl. We did it right there. And we went on the show. We just had the rhythm, and when that show played, we couldn't get back home good before we had to go back in the studio and finish the record.
The record came on the charts at number one R&B chart. Number 1 pop came on at number 1 on the R&B chart. Didn't even go up the chart. Just number 1 with a book.
Oh, girl, I'd be in trouble if you left me now, 'cause I don't know where to look for love. I just don't know how. Oh, girl, how I depend on you to give me love when I need it. Right on time, you would always be. All my friends call me a fool. They say, let the woman take care of you. So I try to be hip and think like the crowd, but even the crowd can't help me now.
Each person had their job to do at the time. Eugene Record was a very strong writer, and I had to get him get him down to the right people so he can get his music heard. So I met Otis Lavelle on the bus. I was on the bus on 12th Street. And Otis been telling me all along when I was playing with Major Lance, bring the group down, come on down and let Carl Davis hear you. So I got the group together and we went down there for audition. And ever since then, it's history. We were signed with Mercury Records at first. We was the Highlights. And there was a group over there called the Highlights, a pop group. And so we wanted to get with Mercury real bad, so we had to change our name. So we decided to put the C in front of that H because we were from Chicago. Carl gave me a chance to do something that nobody else did. I just took a chance, and he accepted what I brought to him. I said, man, I got a singer. And he would say, who is it? I said, I got this group called the Shy-Lights. I said, man, I got this girl named Barbara Ackland, let's make her our secretary. But she was singing for St. Lawrence. Her and I started singing together. Every artist I brought to Carl, and I said, if I thought that they were good artists, Carl recorded them. I brought it to Shy-Lights, I brought it to Tyrone, Bohannon, Babyface, Magnum Force, and on,
R&B music came about in Chicago just like it did elsewhere in the nation. Kids who played and could sing got together and performed for anybody who would listen, especially in their neighborhoods. And they performed the music that they loved and heard all the time from church and the radio. And as they got older, they put their own special mark on the music and created a new sound.
The emotions were here. You name it. It was really live in Chicago. I don't think we realized how big it was, you know, at the time, because we were here and we were in it, and everybody had a set at some club, and, you know, one week you'd have the Dells come by, next week you'd have the Shylights come by. It was just a lot of fun. We enjoyed it tremendously, and we were kind of like family at that point. It was so live. I mean, we had, our playlist probably had maybe about a third of the playlists, local artists, who had really good records that sold in the Midwest, sold in Chicago, Detroit, St. Louis. That was kind of the mix, and Louisville. And you could get a big Midwest hit and maybe break out into another market. But we had a lot of live performances. You know, I mean, not just Shylights, Tyrone Davis, and names that you'd recognize nationally, the Dells, of course, but about 25 other acts who were just always, you know, performing. And as a disc jockey, if you needed to do to have somebody do a live show or come in and do a pantomime to a record, somebody was always available because everybody had a record.
I would sing for nothing, you know, and so when I first got into the industry, you know, I wrote a song, you know, and Curtis wrote the other side, All My Mom, the Major made, and he put it in, and they put it in the publishing company. I didn't know you got paid for that, you know. All I knew is that my name was on the back of the song, you know. So when I went to the publishing company, I was walking, I said, man, I sure need some money. So Irv Nahan, he was the owner of the company, Galen, the publisher. And that's where Carl put all the iTunes in. But I didn't even know that, you know. So hey, Irv said, you need some money? You know, you got some money in there. I said, do I? He said, yeah. He said, how much you need? I said, about $1 or $2. I'm thinking about $100 or $200. And I'm thinking he's just playing with me. Irv said, well, go see the secretary, man. She got, go get the money from her. I said, for real? He said, yeah. So I walked back there, and she gave me an envelope with a check in it. So I stuck it in my shirt. And when I went on the road, I was working for a grocery store. So I came back to the grocery store, and I said, this guy was Irv Gordon. I said, Irv, cash this check for me. I don't know how much it is. I just took it up. I signed. He said, he looked at it. He said, oh, I can't cash this check. I said, man, it's a good check. I'm thinking about the personal check. I said, it's a good check. It's made out to me. Don't worry about it. He said, but I can't cash this check. I said, why? He said, look at it. So I looked at him. I said, yeah, $100. He said, no, that's $10,000. And I said, oh my gosh. I didn't even know how much $10,000 was. You know?
Even though the Dells have been making music for more than 40 years and have a number of hits to prove it, the group has never allowed their success to stop them from singing those sweet songs of love.
Stays on my mind. Stays on my mind. Stays on my mind.
We recorded our first record on the Checker label, Chess Checker. And one of the saddest records you ever heard in your life. I mean, without training. You know, I must commend Harvey Fuqua, who was then one of the lead singers and founders of the Moonglows, who actually took us under his wings and taught us how to sing harmonies. And that's why, till this day, we are noted for great harmonies, because we had the right teachers. We left from Chess Records because the record sold, well, we made $69. Great royalty check. I mean, it was ridiculous. But anyway, we went across the street. And when I say across the street, we're at 48th and Cottage Grove. Chess Records was on the west side of the street. And VJ, a black-owned record company, owned by Vivian Carter and Jimmy Brackett, which formed the VJ name. They were actually right across the street from the old Chess Records. And we went over there and did an audition, and she loved us. So as time progressed, Vivian said, I don't like that name, the El Rays. She said, I want you guys to come up with another name. Now you gotta remember something. The Dells has nothing to do with music. It just sounds good. We all put names in the hat. And Vern Allison, our second tenor, was the one that put the Dells in there. If you ask him today, he cannot tell you why he put Dells in there. I'll tell you, we ain't running nothing. It's like God just put this message in his head, and there it was, he put Dells in there. We have so many hit songs, and each one of them has a special meaning, a special place and time in this life for each and every one of us individually. To me, Stay in My Corner just depicts the way the Dells are in terms of us telling this to each other, to stay in each other's corner. Always together. Seems like we've been together for forever. We won't be together forever, but we've been together 47 years. That's a long, long time. Give your baby a standing ovation. Our heart is a house for love. I can go on and on. Oh, what a night. I mean, it's just, it's not endless, but it has a long list. And it's beautiful. When the Impressions first had out there, this huge record, Your Precious Love, Ewan Abner, who was then the president of VJ Records, asked us to kind of look out for the Impressions as they came into the Apollo for the very first time. Well, we were kind of, you know, we'd been out there and everybody knew us and doing the thing, you know. So I said, no problem, we watch out after. The Impressions came to the Apollo. Jerry Butler, Curtis Mayfield, those brothers got out there and sang Your Precious Love. They literally had to sing it 4 times in a row. You wouldn't let them off the stage in the Apollo. But we're talking about the world famous, hate your guts, will tear your butt apart, don't want you to come out there shucking and jiving, will fire you. The man that owned the theater, that would fire you. Hit you after the first show, go down to the basement, here's your check, get your clothes, and get your hat and get out of here. Impressions. I mean, this is the kind of love that we had for each other. This is the kind of camaraderie that was built because it wasn't just, I'm on the show, we're on the show. It's like they say, there's no I in team. It was a team effort. The show was a success. It was a success for everybody because the opening act was as important as the middle act, as the closing act, and all the other acts in between and whatever. And it was a wonderful learning ground.
The Iceman was actually a joke between a disc jockey in Philadelphia by the name of George Woods and myself. It happened one day, I was performing at the theater, a place called the Uptown Theater. He's producer of the show. And while I'm doing For Your Precious Love, the electricity or something goes out. Well, the theater's not really that big, about 1,600 seats. So I just kind of step to the edge of the stage and I keep singing, mainly because I don't know what else to do. Do you run off the stage? Do you get the band softens down, almost to a whisper. And I finish the song and the people stand up. And he comes out, he said, that's the coolest thing I ever saw. So cool, gonna call you the Iceman. I was born actually in Mississippi, raised here in Chicago, near North Side, a place called Cabrini Green. Curtis Mayfield and I guess, met Curtis when he was about 8, I was about 11. And we kind of grew up singing in his grandmother's church, got involved in choirs, singing on corners, singing in the school bathroom, just singing wherever. About 1957, a group of guys come here from Chattanooga, Tennessee, Arthur and Richard Brooks, Samuel Goodman, wanting to pursue a music career. And so we went down one day to a little company called VJ Records and sang a song called For Your Precious Love. Calvin Carter, who was the brother and the A&R man of the owner of the company, just flipped out. He said, that's a hit if I've ever heard one. A week later, we were in the studio recording it. A week later, it was on the street. Someone called and said, turn the radio on. They're playing your song. And we turned it on. And there was this record that we had just made a couple of days before, actually being played on the air. And all of these young men and this old lady, because she was, Mrs. Brooks at that time was probably in her late 70s, were hugging each other, dancing around this bed, tears rolling out of our eyes, listening to this song. Now we haven't sold a copy, but that wasn't important. We had already achieved more than most of the kids in the neighborhood would ever achieve. We had already accomplished what we never really dreamed that we were going to accomplish. We sang because we enjoyed it. And then when the lady finished playing the song, she said, "That was so nice, I'm gonna play it twice."
Combining politics and music, Jerry Butler is currently serving as a Cook County Commissioner, and after 41 years, the Iceman is still cold as ice. He enjoys performing around the country in his spare time.
In music, there's always a path. We are always adding to that which has already been laid. You know, none of us create music. We take the music that's there, we rearrange it, we reshape it, but it's not our creation. Rhythm and blues music was voices trying to imitate instruments that were imitating voices. Do, 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 do. Good night, sweetheart. We didn't have a bass to play, so the bass singer became the bass instrument. Hey, was it a violin? Was it a flute? Was it a clarinet? Was it a trumpet? Do-wah, right? I mean, all of those sounds were sounds that we heard in the Basie Band, the sounds that we heard in the Ellington Orchestra, and Jimmy Lunsford and what have you. But we didn't have the instruments to duplicate the sounds. And so we took our voices and we made the sounds. And out of that came what people now refer to as doo-wop.
Of course, no discussion of R&B music would be complete without talking about the places where the artists performed and hung out. One of those places is right here, Jerry's Palm Tavern on 47th, right down the street from a place where, if you made it on stage there, you had probably made it pretty big in the business, the Regal Theater.
It was the Regal, believe me. Nothing disparaging to say about the one on 79th right off Stony Island. I know what they were trying to do, capture that memory, but it was far more glitzier. I mean, you thought that Princess Di was gonna walk down the steps, or Queen Elizabeth, or one of the kings, from out of African history was gonna walk down this red carpet. I started working there as a candy girl.
Before Marshall Thompson brought the Shy Lights together 40 years ago, he worked as the house drummer at the Regal Theater, backing a variety of acts.
I got my gig at the Regal Theater playing drums for Gladys. I snuck in the backstage with a little top. They used to throw me out years ago. I was practicing all the Gladys Knight's songs so I can learn it, right? So when they came in town, they had a sound check. We always have a sound check in the mornings. I came there and I was out in the back with my snare drum. I brought me a cross tie and a white shirt and some black pants and some patent leather shoes so I can dress like the house band. So when I came back, they thought I was running the house band because I had the same suit on that they had on. So they got me in the door. So I went in there and the guy was playing drums for Gladys. He couldn't play the music. And I said, "Hey, Gladys," I didn't know her. I said, "Hey, Gladys, can I do it?" Somebody better, I even know how artists get mad. Somebody better come up and play my music. Showtime is at 3 o'clock. I was rehearsing the records for the last 3 weeks. So I knew her records backwards. So I went up there and played it and I got the show.
What is it that Chicago established, or people from Chicago established and left for future generations and for us today?
Well, I think Chicago, you had to try harder. I think, Chicago's a rough town, and the politics behind it. So when you were a good act in Chicago, you were developed. You can do anything all over the world. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And just the music, there was a certain sound, Motown borrowed a lot from here, and people are starting to find that out. I was joking with Jeanne. Jeanne opened up, the Temptations opened up for Gene Chandler at the Regal, So you got one Chicago guy against 5 of the baddest guys in the business, but he was a star, and he had to be that bad. And I think the legacy that it left was that everybody's had their turn, with New York. I think New York really got a lot of credit for the Apollo or the Cotton Club and the Jazz, and Detroit, obviously with Motown. And they had a few great rock groups come out of there, MC5, I don't know if you know that, the Rare Earth and Parliament did a stint there. But everybody came to Chicago because the best musicians came out of Chicago because there was competition. Because at one point in Chicago, the only thing you could do was play music. Or actually, it was 2 things you could do, play music or sing. But it was always about entertainment.
I think the legacy for Chicago as it relates to R&B music is that without having tremendous budgets to work with, without having tremendous promotional vehicles, Chicago ground out some national major music just based on talent, ability, and knowing how to make a good record. And this town has always been famous for artists who can get it on, who can make it work. You know, because after you've recorded and your product is out there, now you need to go out there and perform and sell it. And this town has produced people that had that package together. It was the total performance, recording, and no major promotional tool. You're your own promotional tool. You know, you get out and do it. I think it goes back to what they always say about the rest of Chicago, work ethic. There's a work ethic here that transcends, you know, going to the steel mills and the meat plant. It transcended into the music business where people work really hard on putting their thing together and put a lot of time and energy in, and we are known for coming out successfully after having no magic, just hard work, good ears, and some very talented people who took it to the max.
No one can know for sure what lies in Chicago's future as far as music or anything else goes. But one thing is certain, as wise people have always said, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've already been. And our elders in music in Chicago know exactly where they've been. And in part 2 of this special, we'll find out how they're continuing their legacy and what new artists are here picking it up and passing it on themselves. In honor of Chicago's R&B legacy, tonight we dedicate our show in the memory of one of its finest examples of musical genius, Curtis Mayfield. I'm Jeanne Sparrow. Thank you for watching, and good night.
See the little baby wrapped in a manger on Christmas morning.
Roots here and grew here, as did R&B music, which comes from all those art forms. Tonight we'll take a look at what it was like and what it felt like to be a part of the scene when the art and the business of making music came together to create the Chicago sound. We'll also see what the future holds for the Rhythm and the Roots, Chicago's R&B legacy.
In 1964, VJ Records made $15 million. You know what that's equivalent to in today's buying market in 1964? I mean, it was a very lucrative record company. They had every genre of music there was, from country and western to blues to gospel. And once again, these were black people that owned it, and they were on South Michigan Avenue. And that's a story in itself. I hope that it gets told one day, because Motown patterned itself after VJ. Actually, Motown used to come to Chicago to record its records. Chess Records, the Miracles was signed to Chess Records before there was a Motown. Berry Gordy used to produce for Chess Records. To have watched that era, I call it first phase record business, because when my dad and them started this, there was not, R&B music really didn't exist. They kind of created, they forged new territories that had never been done before. My dad's name was Granville White. They called him Granny, and he worked for CBS Records for 36 years. He started in 1946. Actually, he started out sweeping floors there and wound up getting a position and kept working and wound up becoming an executive for the company.
From 1969 to 1974, the Chi-Lites posted 5 gold albums, 5 gold singles, and 18 top 20 R&B singles, making them a notable force in the Chicago music scene.
We was in St. Louis, Missouri, the home of Brother Red, and we went into the radio station there at KATC. William Gates was the jockey, and we went in there and we was talking on the radio to the kids, and hello, hello, and he said, I'm gonna play Chi-Lites' new hit record. He played Have You Seen Her? We said, hey, that ain't the record, you playing the wrong side. He said, look at the telephone. Telephone lit up straight across the board. He said, you all been singing the wrong song. So we got to Cobo Arena. Jackie Wilson was the headliner. We played at Cobo Arena in St. Louis. And we went on stage and didn't sing Have You Seen It, because we didn't know it. we had made it, but we didn't never rehearse it with the band. You know, that's a B-side. Don't. So we got off stage and them people went wow in the audience. Sing, have you seen her? Sing. We say, oh man, we ain't never rehearsed that with no band. So we told the promoter, we say, hey, what can we do? They say, them people going nuts. You all gotta get out there and sing, have you seen her? So I looked at Jeanne, Squirrel, and said, let's go do it a cappella. No band. I said, hey, don't play, Jim. We'll just go out there and do it. We went out there and sung it a cappella, standing ovation.
I see her face everywhere I go, on the street and even at the picture show. Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen her? Oh, I hear her voice as the cold winds blow in the sweet music on my radio. Have you seen her? Tell me, have you seen her?
Motown heard about it. It was a B-side. So Motown was trying to hurry up and get the monitors, trying to get them in there to cover it. We called New York and say, New York, hey, they getting ready to cover, have you seen her? That's a hit, that's it. He said, don't worry about it, we already know about it. We pressing already.
Chicago is one of the most prominent places in the country for music. There's a sound here that is and will always be Chicago. This signature sound is a combination of falsetto lead vocals with a mix of sweet three-part harmonies and a dose of soul that will satisfy your taste buds for good music.
We performed at the Regal Theater. Chicago had more than one theater. That was the Tivoli, which was farther south, or direct 63rd and Cottage Grove. That was the Trianon Ballroom, which was the great big dance hall where everybody used to go. Then that was the Pershing Lounge where the jazz musicians hung and played, and they had the dances and what have you. There was the Club de Lisa, where all of the folks used to come and hang, and the big stars who played downtown at the Chicago Theater and the Brass Rail and what have you, the Blue Note, the Sherman House, they would all migrate after the joints closed downtown to the Club de Lisa and jam for free. Because that was the get loose place. That was where you let it all hang out, no restrictions, no just go and show how bad you were compared to the other folks who you thought were bad.
I was hired by Billy Davis, who was the A&R director at that time. And he came from Detroit, and the objective was Phil Chess and Leonard Chess wanted to create a Motown type arena where they would have a staff band, musicians, and to create a certain sound, the Chicago sound, supposedly. And at that time, Maurice White was on drums, who's the leader of Earth, Wind & Fire. Louis Satterfield, who was on bass, who became one top producer and arranger in his own self, and bassist. Gerald Sims, who later owned the Chess building, and who's a guitarist. And myself as doing the writer, along with Leonard Caston and Raynard Miner, who was writers on staff. Bobby Miller, and there was a lot of us that were hired to create this Chicago sound. And during this time I was working at Chess Records, I was a student. So getting out of school, say at 3 o'clock, I would hurry down to Michigan Avenue in Record Row to Chess Records and go up on the second floor of the chess building and browse around and with my friends and say, now let's go to work. What was the song for the day? Who's doing what? Who's recording what? Who's rehearsing what? Well, George, why don't you go over there and work with Maurice of the Radiants and find out what key his song is going to be in. Billy Davis would come to me and say, here's a tape. Take this tape and transcribe the music from it so we can make a lead sheet to send to Washington, D.C. for copyright.
During those times, at Chess Records, I saw Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and George Kirby, Etta James, Maurice and the Radiants, the Dells. I was there the day the Jackson 5 auditioned and were turned down. WVON 1450, you ain't heard nothing yet.
The music business in Chicago also allowed the radio DJs to achieve a high level of success. Familiar voices like Purvis Spann, E. Rodney Jones, and Herb Kent hosted parties at all the hotspots and became fast friends of all the stars.
I was at WVON. WVON, I'm sure they'll make a movie about it one day. It was the most famous station, soul station in the nation, and to my way of thinking, maybe the most famous station in the world, because all hit records came through us. I remember playing a record for Leonard Chess 6 times in a row, and I broke it. And that was the Watusi. You ever see people do the Watusi? Well, he owned the radio station, so there wasn't any problem there. He said, play it again, play it again. I played it 4 or 5, play it one more time. So played it 6 times. Can you imagine anything like that?
Not today.
The record broke wide open, and that's some of the power that we had.
I think that good music has a way of lasting, that you just don't forget it. You can put on the Duke of Earl and everybody will still get up and dance. You can put on Twine Time, and of course, a couple of months ago, we lost a great person, Alvin Cash. He was a nice person to me. I noticed the way they would react when we did some of the disco sets down at Taste Entertainment on 63rd and Love. It's like they jump right to the floor with those Dusties.
When you talk about the Chicago sound and its music, artists like the Dells, Jerry Butler, and Curtis Mayfield quickly come to mind. But female artists like Chaka Khan, Minnie Riperton, and The Emotions were kicking out great hits as well.
A very good friend of mine who also passed away was Minnie Riperton. We went to school together. We used to double date together. Minnie was really powerful. And she was such a funny person. She was so much fun. She really was. She really was. And every time I hear Memory Lane, I just can't sit through the whole song, even when I'm playing it in the studio. So either I distract myself by talking on the telephone, or I will sit there and tears will just start coming down my face.
Well, tell me, Teresa, how you got involved with The Emotions.
We were in high school together. We went to Francis Parker High School, and I was always in talent shows. And I was very quiet and shy, so that was my way of expressing myself. And they got used to seeing me on the programs, and then we all sang in church. And we would be on some of the same programs at church, different churches. And I think they got the inclination that my voice would mesh with theirs. So when a sister decided to leave the group in 1970, they called me to replace her. I really loved working with them. I left the group in April of 1974, so I was in the group exactly 4 years. And after the break with the group, I started getting calls from local artists, and I started doing backup vocals. Now, I started as a backup vocalist when I was like 15 years old, so I was kind of a trooper at that. And have had the pleasure of working with some of just about every known artist in the city of Chicago and some unknown artists. And it was fun, like Gene Chandler, the Dells, the Shy Lights, you name it.
While Chicago's old school artists are still going strong, and their music is too, they're investing in the future of Chicago's music scene in another way, by showing the way and keeping their memories alive. And this is a good thing for the new artists here, because it encourages them and inspires them, because they are able to keep focused on their success and on reestablishing what made Chicago great musically.
It's time to move on. Ooh, yeah. Said I'm tired of hanging on. Tired of hanging on, yeah. It's time to move on.
started singing at the age of 4 in church, and my dad was like, girl, get up there and sing, and I want to hear you out of everybody. So it was either that or, you know, consequences to that. But my background really extended, like, really in the gospel roots, I would say. My family sang, all of my brothers and sisters sing, my brothers play instruments, so it was just like a family thing, and we all sang in the church, and we had a group and all of that, and we traveled and we sang like with kind of like everybody in the gospel field, should I say. So that's kind of like my background to me, is the gospel and soul. I just try to bring the realness, and I think people can relate to the realness of a song. If they feel and they're like, oh, that's happened to me, or I'm going through that, or I know somebody who's going through that. So just the realness of just the lyrics and just the feeling of it all.
2 years ago, promises is all I heard out of your mouth. And now you wanna walk away, boy, and tear down the walls in this house. You used to tell me sweet things in the morning time. And all you do is hurt me and think that everything is fine. You better be careful what you say to me, 'cause it might turn around on you. You better be careful what you do.
With the help of R. Kelly, a Grammy Award-winning Chicago R&B artist, Sparkle is creating her own style and putting her own sound on a song that's all about loving you. Are there any particular Chicago artists that you feel have influenced your music as an R&B artist?
Minnie Riperton. My first album, I do a cover of her, Loving You, and Shaka Khan, Curtis Mayfield. I have a little stench of his, I think, Push a Man, I think, in the beginning of my Be Careful video, so that was real nice. You can feel everything that they're singing about in their music. From Loving You, Minnie Riperton, Shaka Khan's, Tell Me Something Good, you know, to, you know, Curtis Mayfield's, all of his songs, basically. Soundtracks that he did. We got some great talent here in Chicago, you know, and people like, I think if we praise our own here in Chicago and, you know, just get behind our own, I think we can be just like New York or LA, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I think it's just the people in general around us just come together and be like, you know, supportive and just, you know, got our back, Chicago. You know what I'm saying? And we can, you know, rise back to that plateau, I guess, where your Record Row area that you're speaking on.
Public Announcement is committed to putting their hometown back on the music map. And with a platinum-selling single under their belts, plus a vow to work with other acts and share their knowledge, they're well on their way to making that happen.
It makes no sense every day you fight. Makes me so mad what he put you through. When I'm the only man that's made for you. Why must I sit back and dry your tears?
I feel like being a part of the big movement in regards to getting Chicago on the map from a music perspective in a real big way is just to be a part of that is a real, it's like a blessing, you know, to get us on the map like New York and LA. To be a part of that is great.
Do you ever wonder about what it would have been like if you had come around in those days?
All the time, actually. It's because it seemed like it was so much easier, but I'm sure that it wasn't, but it just seems that way. And, you know, you have to pay a lot of, you know, respect and tribute to the people back then, because it's like, if it wasn't for them paving the way, you know, where we'd be today. You know, we can talk about movement from here onward, you know, but you got to reach back.
Actually, that hunger, that zeal, you know, in regards to music back then, you know, as opposed to now, you find people, well, okay, yeah, I'm in the business and, you know, it's okay. But back then, you know, that hunger, you know, and the realness of it, you know, was there. You know, people really loved to sing and they loved music. And there was a oneness about, you know, about music back then as opposed to now.
New artists credit their singing influences or writing styles to someone they listened to growing up. The fellas admit Chicago legends Lou Rawls and Curtis Mayfield have definitely made an impression on them.
Jerry Butler. Just got one of those voices, an unforgettable voice, like you know, comparable to Nat King Cole, and those are like my guys.
Lou Rawls, you know, got that, you know.
Made it up.
Yeah. that smile and that. Yeah, so, yeah, definitely.
Actually, we met the guy from the Shy-Lights not too long ago. Marshall. And he's a pretty cool cat. And before I got with these guys, we used to open up for them back in the day. Since the R. Kelly days, I would say since 90, born into the 90s, 91, 92, we've been out, you know, so.
And you still around Chicago? You plan on staying here?
Still by. Ain't going nowhere.
Out on the dance floor, I'm holding you so tight. Gotta make you feel me, gotta push your body tight. Up against my body grinding, I'm in the mood, felt the same. Ooh, what's on your mind? It's body bumping time, baby. I'm making hopefully while we grind. Uh-huh, don't you want me? Cause I want you. Let's do.
I think when the first single, Body Bump, went platinum, you know, and we heard it across the radio off GCI, you know, and people started accepting us. And we was doing shows, we was going places, a lot of people didn't really recognize us or anything, but we started performing, it started showing to us that people were starting to feel us. You know, we just do shows and they be like, who are they? Then at the end of the show, they with us.
What do you think the Chicago sound is now?
Public announcement? No.
Well, we have this thing that we call Shy Raw, you know, for public announcement. And basically what that is, we don't get all technical on our sound or, you know, this guy be so perfect or anything like that. And when we sing, and we know what the comes out of our voices and stuff like that, and we just go with the flow, you know, music-wise. Bass ain't gotta be so tight, drums. We don't do this, like, it's a feel.
It's a feel,
you know.
it's a vibe.
Yeah.
You know? And a lot of times, if you for example, if you're listening to some music or whatever, you know, and you know, so or say for instance you at church or whatever, and you know say the Holy Ghost music or the Spirit music is, you know, you won't find people say, well, okay, man, let me stop feeling the Spirit or the vibe or the music or whatever that's going on because say the bass player played the wrong note, you know, it's a feel. You know, and then people move to music and they feel music because of how it makes them feel. You know, it's not, you know, well, I'm gonna listen and be really technical and, okay, if it's this way, then, okay, I'll feel it. You know, it's just a feel, and that's what we do. We try to bring across our live performance, you know, through, you know, even when we behind the mic and doing studio work.
Actually, it's here in Chicago that started this new foundation for public announcement because we blew up first here at home. So that was another way to let us know that they was going to feel us here, they're going to feel us elsewhere.
We just want to let Chicago know that we don't want to lose the love that we have from, you know, them from in regards to the support that they've been giving us. So we want to say this.
I don't want to lose a love that means so much to me. I've got to make sure that you stay. If I have to be the key, I can't imagine my life without the one that I need. Please don't leave me now. Can you promise me?
I think music is alive and well in Chicago. As I mentioned earlier, there's some fine producers that are coming out of this marketplace, and I think that we're going to continue to see music grow from here. We've had several companies that have made recognition or at least acknowledged this marketplace, such as Jive Records. They have their own recording studio here, which is smart. R. Kelly records a lot of his music out of there. I think we're going to see this market continue to grow.
This generation of artists, for the most part, are more business-minded and are much more careful about where their dollars go, who gets what, and how to get yours. And so for them, that's good, and I wish them all the best. This is so important that it's a sense of pride. You know, it's a sense of pride. It's a sense of making sure that these guys get something out of it, because most of them didn't get the money they got. They never got the accolades because the timing was different. I mean, think about the Impressions. They were the first one to make the movement songs, you know, Keep On Pushing. It was, you know, the material and a lot of the acts out of Chicago shaped the nation.
No one can know for sure what lies in the future as far as Chicago's music or anything else goes. But one thing is certain. As old wise people have often said, you can't know where you're going unless you know already where you've been. And our elders in music here know exactly where they've been. And together, they and the new school will forge ahead and continue the legacy of the Chicago sound for generations to come. In honor of that legacy, tonight we dedicate the show to one of the finest examples of musical genius we have in this city, Curtis Mayfield. I'm Jeanne Sparrow. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Curtis will always be with us. This music, these songs, will be here. Future generations will hear them. Some people may be inspired by them, uplifted by them, but that's what music is supposed to do. And that's what it has always done.
The moon shining bright, there's a set going strong, a lot of things going on. The man of the hour has an air.
If you did not know Curtis personally, you missed something. Wonderful human being, a genius in mind of songs, writing, just in a sundry of things. Wonderful family man. Point is that that music was so good, it's still good.
Hard to understand, but a hell of a man. This cat of the
This has been a special presentation. The City Colleges of Chicago offer various courses in musical instruction and music appreciation. For registration information, dial 773-COLLEGE. That's 773-265-5343.
And that actually helped me today with my writing.
No questions why. The only game you know is do or die. The game he plays for keys.
Curtis Mayfield, I really knew he was going to be he was like the godfather of the music business to me in vocal groups.
A lot of people wanted to be like Curtis. His style, his sound was just, you knew it was his style.